I'm certainly one of those. You can always better your best. You can always go further than anything you've ever done before. And emotional intelligence is one of the drivers of successful people, agnostic of industry. If you look at great business people, philanthropists, politicians, humanitarians, many of them, all of them, I would say, have emotional intelligence. In educating on this subject, I want everyone to feel great about reaching out and being able to get more information. I authored an article about 7 reasons how emotional intelligence underpins leadership success. And I believe that HR professionals, more so than any other discipline within a company, have the power to change the course of that organization, because the people are ultimately the drivers. Today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the technology elements that are here today, right? It's ironic that technology brings us close. Many of you work and speak with, or people at your companies with people all over the world. But at the same time, some of you may be sitting at the tables and you've been on your phones the whole time and you've never said hi to the person next to you. So we want to be thoughtful about that. What do you hope to learn today? Is there anybody who feels good about sharing what they hope they want to learn today? I was fortunate enough to receive questions and introductions from a number of you that reached out. So there's an opportunity, something that you can take away, reaching out to people before you even come to a conference. And some of the questions that I was asked were, Samir, hey, how can I be a little bit more thoughtful when I would say I'm in a state of excitement, maybe a little bit frustrated with somebody? How can I handle that and ultimately make the best out of that? How many of you would like to get better when they're maybe a little bit not happy with somebody? I see a bunch of smiles. We'll cover that for sure. The intangibles of emotional intelligence. So many people, myself included, we're good at numbers. Maybe that's the likes on our new backdrop picture on Facebook or LinkedIn, and the numbers are important. But as Albert Einstein made the point, not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. Now that is a deep statement. Because how do you measure trust, right? The great point that Claire was making, how do you measure that? You can't. How do you measure the ability to communicate effectively? Sitting down with someone, being able to listen to them, understand who they are, and then going from maybe a state of excitement or frustration to feeling heard and really liking them. How do you measure the love that you have for a child, a brother, a sister, a parent, a grandparent, a friend? Those are intangibles. And while there certainly are some ways to try to help measure emotional intelligence, emotional intelligence in many ways is an intangible. We can't measure it. But we need emotional intelligence in order to achieve our full potential. And as pointed out earlier, to bring out happiness in those that we work with. So what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence, of course, can be defined as the ability to monitor one's own and other people's emotions, to discriminate between different emotions and label them appropriately and use emotion to gather behavior. Now, there's intelligence and there's emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence isn't taught necessarily in school. It's something that you have to learn. So some of you, when you've had the opportunity to be in situations where maybe you got a little bit nervous and you were frustrated or you didn't know how to act, by reflecting and being able to be in those situations, you gained emotional intelligence. I love this slide. From Aristotle, anybody can become angry. That's easy. But to be angry with the right person and to the right degree at the right time, the right purpose, the right way, that's not within everyone's power and is not easy. Now, I would argue that anybody in HR, and I'm sure I'm not speaking to you, shouldn't be angry, right? Because we should be emotionally intelligent about situations. Now, there's an interesting line that if you feel like how many people have been in a situation where they want to kind of tell somebody off, right? They want to tell them, that can be personally or professionally. I see somebody laughing there. I always remind myself that if it's such a good idea to tell somebody off, you need to tell them. It'll be a pretty good idea tomorrow as well. And so you can wait until that point. Now, how many people are familiar, and I want to bring up a point here about tact. Does anybody know what tact means?
Of course.
There are a couple funny definitions of tact. So Abraham Lincoln said that tact is the ability to express an opinion without making an enemy, right? So many times we're in difficult situations as HR professionals, and we are the, I would say, source of frustration because somebody has had a bad day, they're not happy with their manager, they're not happy with their job, they should have gotten a promotion, they should receive more money, they're underpaid, and they're mad about it. And it's up to you to be thoughtful and patient and help them. And you need to be tactful. And that takes time. And that takes experience. Now before we move, there's a really funny definition of tact that I think some of you might think is funny as well. So Winston Churchill said that tact is the ability to tell someone to go to hell and they actually look forward to the trip. Right? Think about that, that's pretty funny. Emotional versus rational. So when we see and hear, signals are transmitted from our spine into the brain. And we feel and we have emotion before we're rational. So the limbic system you see there, the limbic system feels emotion. Then some of us develop emotional intelligence and we're rational about it. And I'm sure some of you have noticed there are people, and some of you out there, that when there's an emotional situation, they tend to get calm and they get rational. You know who's great at that, and who's famous for that, is Bill Gates. When there's a story about Bill Gates and Steve Jobs when they're arguing, and Jobs is furious because Bill Gates has kind of found a way to, not only they were partners, Microsoft and Apple in the early days, but they were also competitors. And Steve is livid. And as Steve gets angrier and angrier, Bill Gates has a skill, and he gets calmer and calmer and calmer and smiles. And that was a great strength of his emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence allows us to connect with other people, right? It allows us to build rapport, to earn that trust we talked about earlier. Components of emotional intelligence: what I see, what I do. We heard about this earlier. Self-awareness, self-management, social awareness. Those are kind of cliche words, but they're how we define them scientifically and from an educational perspective. But they have real-world applicability. Empathy. How many feel like that they're empathetic, personally and professionally, and they generally are able to recognize emotions and share perspective with other people, right? Empathy helps to build trust. Now, empathy is something that has to grow, and that oftentimes comes with putting yourself in somebody else's position. And you know when somebody's empathetic. You know when you're sharing a struggle, something that's bothering you with a colleague or a friend, and they care. And you know when they don't care, right? And so empathy is a big part of emotional intelligence. There's 3 stages of empathy. There's cognitive empathy, right? We are aware of an emotional state. Then there's emotional empathy, and that's engaging and sharing those emotions. And then there's compassionate empathy. Right? Those are the most advanced professionals and people that are actually able to take action. And that's one of the takeaways I want from here today, is to pause when you feel something. Pause when you want to speak to someone and cut them off. How many people have been in a situation with somebody and they're really, really excited, they can't wait to tell them about something. And the other person has stopped listening and they're doing what I call like verbal throwing up. They're like, bah, 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 bah. And they really want to say something, and you kind of lose like your excitement, and you're like, oh great, they don't really care. So then you stop talking, they interrupt, and you stop listening. So emotional intelligence in that situation would be to continue to let someone to speak, to smile. Now you may be, on the island of Coron, in your mind, on the beach, taking a vacation, but you're still there giving them the time and being emotionally present. Steps to develop and practice empathy: active listening. Actually listening to people. And that's so hard because we have so many distractions these days. It's easy not to listen. It's easy to look the other way. Now, here's one easy tip that's very important. You may have a very important email that you're waiting from your boss, per se. And you're working with a colleague and there's a big discussion. Or maybe you're at an event, a networking reception here at this conference, and you have to pull out your phone. Now, I think it's just important. An emotional, intelligent way to do that is just to simply let somebody know. And I have people all the time say, Samir, thank you so much for letting me know that you were doing something important. You were waiting for a call from your father and you received it, because I thought that you didn't care about what I had to say and you were checking Instagram. So that's an easy way. Now, underlying feelings. So how about some takeaways? I love takeaways. I think it's great to come up here and be afforded a precious opportunity to address you and make some new friends, hopefully, in lifelong relationships. But when you're in a situation where somebody is frustrated or they're upset and they're coming to you, you have to take the time to let them be heard. That's your job. So, hey, what's on your mind? How do you feel about X, Y, Z? Another one that I love is so easy. I want some of you who never use this to write this down. The easiest one to say is simply, somebody's angry, upset, they've shared a little bit, they look to you to respond, and you just say, tell me more about that. Tell me more about that. And it's amazing how people can develop genuine appreciation, love, and trust when they're heard. And then, of course, identifying with the person's experience, yes, hey, you're upset, we know that that's happened before, offering support, and learning to detach. That's what emotional, intelligent people can do. They can be in a situation, they can hear, they can feel it, and then move on to the next person. They're able to compartmentalize it and revisit it. Empathy. Using empathy effectively with your coworkers and getting their full attention. Looking for verbal and non-verbal cues. Leaning in. Making sure that your person, if I've studied many famous people, and you hear common characteristics of successful people who are great leaders. For instance, one of them I know in this country, how many people are basketball fans in here? I think basketball is a wonderful sport, and it was funny, when I was walking around Manila, I saw so many jerseys. This country loves basketball. And there's a famous coach named Mike Krzyzewski of Duke University. And one of the secrets to his success is no matter who you are, when you are talking to Mike Krzyzewski, you feel like you are the most important person in the world to him. Think about that. Think about that next time you're in a conversation. Networking. Anybody want to share what comes to mind when they hear networking? Oh, I heard somebody. Anybody? What do you think about? I see some people whispering to each other about networking. Maybe small talk, maybe like awkward silence. Emotional intelligence is perhaps the most important quality to be able to network effectively. How many people thought of that when they think of networking? All these people talking and looking over there, right? Emotional intelligence allows you to connect with people you've never met and build relationships through that speed of trust. I love this. Emotional intelligence and networking. Using your ears and mouth proportionately. Now, it's great to see that there's way more women than men in this room. Being active in the Women Economic Forum, passionate about the emerging influence and affluence of women globally, right? And women have some serious competitive advantages over men. They can more easily combine intuitive and logical thinking. They're more aware of their own actions. I know some of you are nodding, yep, that's true. And they can better assess the resources to solve a problem. And that's a key, using your ears and mouth proportionally, right? And women are way better at that than men. Now, there have been a number of studies. Let's articulate what the study is. What is your name here, ma'am? Say it again. Nada? Naita? Naita. Naita. So we have a networking event, and there's 300 people. And on the way out, we ask every single person, there have been studies that have proven this, hey, who do you like the most at this event? And everybody walking out, Naita, 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 Naita. Everyone says, I like Naita the best. Okay? The next question. Okay, you like Naita the best. What do you know about Naita? Nothing. Because Naita asked the thoughtful questions. She used her ears and mouth proportionally, and that's why she was more likable. Right? British Prime Minister and novelist Benjamin Disraeli once said, talk to a woman or man about him or herself and they will listen to you for hours. So I want you to think about that next time you're with someone, you're at an event. Networking and success correlation. 85% of success is due to our ability to connect with others, which we need emotional intelligence for, right? And only 15% is due to technical skill. Think about that, right? Think about that. Connecting with others, so no matter how much studying you do, no matter what you learn in books, your ability to relate to others is going to drive success. Here's an example of emotional intelligence. I was on a bus in India several years ago, and I met a young man, and I was really busy and stressed out with our companies and a multitude of challenges, which aren't relevant to the conversation here. But guess what? There was a young man who was struggling with finding his way around India, and he needed some help. And I gave him some advice, and I made a new friend. And I received a message, this was only a few months ago, hey Samir, we met 3 or 4 years ago on a bus. Right? In fact, emotional intelligence I had several people reach out and request meetings. Hey Samir, I read about you. In fact, Joanna reached out to me and she wrote me a thoughtful email and said, hey, I think our companies can work together. Okay. That's emotional intelligence. Body language. How many people have met someone before, you introduce yourself, you're talking, and they're like looking over here, looking over there, looking at, you're still talking, and you're like, We say 70% of what we're communicating with our body language. And I think 18% with the tone and reflection of our voice, and only 12% of the actual words. Right? So body language is important. What is your unique approach? I think that everyone here, greatness is not this wonderful, esoteric thing. It truly exists in all of us, and we need to surround ourselves in the right environments, invest in ourselves. And finding your unique approach is simply playing to your strengths. Now, I may be able to engage people better than some and speak. I know others that are as effective, perhaps even more effective than me, because they're great listeners and they're introverts. And they're able to go with thoughtful questions. Like, instead of that question, when you ask somebody, what do you do? And they're like, and you just say, hey, tell me about how you spend your time professionally. Those have much different feelings. And emotions, human beings are emotional beings. Finding your unique approach. There's one great takeaway on this slide. How many people can think of, and all the people that you know, right? How many people you can think of? Your friends, family circles, where you met someone and you would call them a taker. I see some laughs. A taker is someone that you've helped, right? Then they've asked for help again, you help them, then you need a small favor and they don't even know who you are, right? Taker is very important to know that. Now the key about takers is that, let's say I got upset by a taker and then later on, I went to an event and I said, I didn't want to meet anybody, I don't like those takers. I would miss the opportunity to connect with others. People do business with people they like. People are more likable when they have emotional intelligence and they listen. Now the last point I want to make is that now we have this digital element of emotional intelligence. And when people meet you and learn about your company, they're going to go online, they're going to search for you. And identity is the most valuable commodity, as Eric Schmidt talks about. How many people have Google tested someone before? I see a lot of smiles. I mean, that happens in HR, so make sure that what's out there online is representative of who you truly are. And the last component of emotional intelligence, when you meet someone, or when you say you're going to do something, make sure that you follow up. The fortune's always when you collect a business card, you have a colleague, you say, hey, I'm going to let you know about that request. Make sure you take a note, because that will build the trust and show your emotional intelligence. There's lots of ways to follow up. One of the ways that you can differentiate yourself is taking the time to put some thoughts to paper. Thanking a colleague, thanking a manager, thanking a boss. And failing to plan is planning to fail. So when you're going into a meeting, make sure you think about the situation and don't go in rush. Spend 5-10 minutes. Right? Build relationships effectively and make sure you pay it forward. Right? Relationships and emotional intelligence have a lot to do with giving. Right? Giving your time is free. We make a living by what we get, a life by what we give. There are a lot of women in this room. Spanx, one of my heroes, Sarah Blakely. Don't be intimidated by what you don't know. That could be your greatest strength and ensure that you do things differently. And I hope some of you today learned a little bit more so that you can go back to your lives personally, professionally, and be a little bit more thoughtful about your emotional intelligence. My name is Samir Somal. I think we have time for a few questions. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Samir Somal.